been sitting, it's still a good practice on a wet clutch to install the parts wet. So I got a clean container here. I'm going to pour a little oil in there. And then I'm going to put the plates back in one at a time after I dip them in the oil. It's kind of like basting, you know. And it doesn't have to, I mean, it doesn't have to be heavy. I just want them wet. And just alternate. There's steel and friction. Don't forget that conical snap ring that was in there. And probably best to put them in the same orientation as they were originally if you're reusing the clutch. In other words, don't turn the friction or steel plates inside out. It's possible there could be a little bit of warpage, you know. So no sense in doing something you don't have to do. It's easily avoidable, and creating a problem that you didn't have to begin with. All right, now we got all of those in place. Now we have the pressure plate. May or may not, but always look to see if there's any unique notches, anything that might indicate it needs to go in a certain space. In this case, I don't see anything, so we're just going to go ahead and install it. Make sure too it's sitting flat on the plates. Okay. Next comes the spring. Lay the spring in place, and we should do the same thing. Is there any uniqueness to it? No, don't see any. Of course, they have to. I don't want anything on there. They have to show up inside the holes, right? Okay, and then, now this does have little tangs. I don't know if you can see it all that well. There's little tangs on the plate there, so we're going to get that in place. And then we're just going to start the bolts. Just going to start them. First one, whichever one you install first, you put the second one in 180 opposite of that. Bring them both down to where they're in contact. And that way you have some tension on them. And you can take your hand off. Okay, now once I've got them in place, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to bring them down with my little gun here, but not tighten them. They're actually going to bottom. But you want to bring them down evenly, so kind of like a star pattern. Until they bottom. Okay. Now we can go ahead and snug them up. Again, if there's any question, look at the spec. Usually bolts this size, they don't have that much torque on them. So we're going to use a small torque wrench. And let's see, we'll set it for about 10 foot-pounds. That should do it. And then we'll just tighten them right up. Again, if you're not sure, look at the spec. You can go by feel if you're experienced, but remember, if you break something, it's a lot more expensive than doing it right the first time. Now, we got to tighten up that big nut. Okay, that's going to be set to 70 foot-pounds. So we got that set. Remember, it is lefty loosey, righty tighty. So we're going to set up our tool to do that. And then we're going to place our tool in place. We can get her in there. And my old butt is going to have to stand up to get that kind of torque. There we go. Okay, now it's time to put the adjuster back in. I'm gonna back it out a little bit and make sure that, at least on this model, you can see the word out. You see that word out faces out. Fits in the little tongue there. And what I want to do is I want to make sure it seats deep enough that I can get the snap ring pliers back. And you want to make sure it's fully seated. It's all the way in the groove, all right? All the way in the groove. And we'll adjust the clutch. Adjust it on this model. And remember what I said before, you always check the service information for your particular bike. For this one, we're going to take all the slop out of the cable itself, open up all the slack, and then we're going to turn the adjusting nut in until it takes all the play out of the push rod. And you'll feel it. You'll feel it hit. And once it's there, we're going to back it out about a turn and half a turn to a turn. So I'm going to take it out. I'm going to take it out 3/4. And we're going to seat the lock nut, the jam nut. And then we have to hold that adjustment while we tighten it up. Now, then we'll adjust the slop out of the cable itself to end up with, the book says 1/6 to 1/8, but to where it feels good. Okay, to where it feels good. If you're riding for a while, you know where you like your clutch.